we're going to finish up stoichiometry by looking at some 3-step bridges. So some of these are going to be just a little bit more complex than what we did in the last video. Again, we're going to start by balancing our equation. So hopefully you're familiar with and comfortable with this now. We have calcium, chlorine, sodium, and oxygen in this equation. I have 1 calcium, 2 chlorine, 2 sodium, 1 sulfur, and 4 oxygen on my reactant side. I have 1 calcium, 1 chlorine, 1 sodium, 1 sulfur, and 4 oxygen on my product side. Calcium is balanced, chlorine is not. I need to put a coefficient in front of my NaCl. Now I have 2 NAs, and I have 2 Cls. So if I look, calcium's balanced, chlorine's balanced, sodium's balanced, sulfur's balanced, and oxygen is balanced. So that whole equation is balanced with just that one little coefficient. Again, we're going to do the molar mass of substances. So for calcium, I have 1 calcium in this formula. And from my periodic table, the mass of calcium is 40.1. So 1 times 40.1. And I have 2 chlorines. Again, that goes with the subscript. And I can look at my periodic table. The periodic table tells me that the mass of chlorine is 35.5. So I'm going to do 2 times 35.5. I'm going to add all of those together, which will give me my overall molar mass. And again, I can put them in my calculator just like 1 times 40.1 plus 2 times 35.5. And that gives me 111.1 grams per mole. So the molar mass of CaCl is 111 grams in 1 mole. You can do the same thing for my other substances. So for sodium, I have 2 of them. The mass of sodium from my periodic table is 23.0. Sulfur, I have 1. The mass from my periodic table is 32.1. And oxygen, I have 4. The mass from my periodic table is 16.0. So I can add all of those together. 2 times 23.0 plus 1 times 32.1 plus 4 times 16.0 gives me 142.1. So molar mass of Na2SO4 is 142.1 grams per 1 mole. We've got 2 other substances to look at. So here, 1 calcium times 40.1, 1 sulfur times 32.1, and 4 oxygen times 16.0. You can add those up. And I'm doing the math as you're doing the math. So double check your numbers with my numbers. Hopefully we come up with the same thing. I got 136.2 for the mass of calcium sulfate. And that's going to be grams per 1 mole again. So my molar mass is always grams in 1 mole. Here I have 1 Na times 23.0. and 1 Cl times 35.5. And that's going to give me 58.5 grams per mole. Okay. So those are the numbers that I'm going to use when I do these calculations. I'm going to show you an example of different ones, and then you can practice from that video sheet on your own. Again, I'm going to use both Gumman and the mole rat. Here I have 2 different substances, so I need 2 different Gummans or 2 different mole rats. Ooh, that's a fat mole rat. And I'm starting with 3 moles of NaCl. So I'm starting with moles. And I'm trying to find how many moles of CaCl. So I'm going to go from moles of one thing to moles of another. That's only one step. So my bridge is only going to have one vertical line. Whatever they give me in the problem goes in the top left. So I have 3. I need a unit, which is moles, and a substance, which is NaCl. Moles of NaCl drops down here, just like stuff did in our other video. And from moles of NaCl, I'm trying to get to moles of CaCl2. So I'm going to put that in the top corner. Remember, when I have moles and moles, I look at my balanced equation because I need the coefficients for that. So I'm going to look back up here. I'm going to see that my coefficient for CaCl2 is 1, and my coefficient for NaCl is 2. So let me go back to the right slide. 1 was my coefficient for CaCl2, and 2 was my coefficient for NaCl. 3 times 1 divided by 2 gives me 1.5 moles of CaCl2. Look at my unit right here is the same as the unit in my answer. So that one should be pretty simple. You're just going from moles of one substance to moles of another. We can get a little bit more complex. We're using the same reaction. Here again, I have 2 separate substances, so I need 2 gummans or 2 mole rats. And here I'm starting with moles of NaCl and trying to go to grams of CaCl2. So moles to moles first, and then to grams. Moles of NaCl to moles first, and then to grams. So 2 steps tells me 2 vertical lines on my bridge. I'm starting with 3 moles of NaCl. That goes right here. Moles of NaCl drops down. So again, we're doing the same thing we were doing before. I'm trying to go to moles of my new substance. So my new substance is CaCl2. Moles of CaCl2 drops down. And from moles here, I'm going to grams of CaCl2. We saw in the last problem that this coefficient was a 1 and this coefficient was a 2. So now we've just added on one more step here. And 1 mole of CaCl2, we can go back and look at our molar mass, if I can find the right one. And it tells us that 111.1 grams are in 1 mole. So when I go down here, I'm going to have 111.1 grams in 1 mole. So again, I'm going to multiply across the top, multiply across the bottom, and then divide. And I end up with 166.65. And that's grams of CaCl2. We're not using sig figs in here for those of you who are used to sig figs. So you can round this to 167 if you want, or you can leave it at 166.65. Either answer is perfectly fine for our purposes. All right, and we're going to go one step further here. I'm starting with grams of NaCl and trying to go to grams of CaCl2. So 2 substances means 2 gummans, or 2 mole rats, going from grams of one, first to moles, then to moles of another, then to grams. Right? Grams of one to moles, moles to moles, moles to grams. Either way, I'm going 1, 2, 3 steps. 1, 2, 3 steps. So my bridge has to have 3 vertical lines. This is going to be the longest bridge that we do. So don't be scared by the amount of lines on here. It's not that much more difficult. Whatever you start with from the problem goes in the top left. Grams of NaCl drops down. From grams, I've gone to moles of that substance, so moles of NaCl. Moles of NaCl drops down. From moles of NaCl, I'm going to moles of my new substance. This is the CaCl2. moles of CaCl2 drops down. And from moles, I'm going to grams. So grams of CaCl2 is where I want to end up. 1 mole of NaCl is the same as 58.5 grams. That's the molar mass that we did earlier. 1 mole of CaCl2 equals 2 moles of NaCl. Those were our coefficients from our balanced equation. And then 1 mole of CaCl2 is 111.1 grams. We just used that number. And again, that's the molar mass of CaCl2. So I'm going to take all of my numbers on top and I'm going to multiply those. And then I'm going to divide them by the number on the bottom. And I get 94.957. So 94, 95, if I round that, grams of CaCl2. Again, we're not worried about sig figs, so you can round or you can not round. Either one is fine. Go ahead now and try this one on your own. This is just like the first one we did. Pause the video, give it a try, and then come back and check your answer. And I'm just going to go ahead and draw out the bridge for you in case you need to check your work. So the 3.5 moles of this came from my problem. 1 mole of this and 1 mole of this came from my balanced equation. Those are the coefficients. So that gives me 3.5 moles of CaSO4. Okay. Do the same thing for the next one. Go ahead, pause the video, do it on your own, and then come back to check your answer. Okay, this one I'm just going from moles to particles. It's similar to what we did in our first video. So 5 moles of Na2SO4. Moles of Na2SO4 drop down. I'm trying to go to particles. And remember from our first video that particles goes along with Avogadro's number. So 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd and 1 mole. And 5 times 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd divided by 1 gives us 3.01 times 10 to the 24th. So this is 3.01 times 10 to the 24th particles of sodium sulfate. Here's your next practice one. Again, go ahead and pause the video and try it. And then come back to check your answer. This is one of the really long ones. I'm starting with 10.5 grams of CaSO4. I can look back at my molar mass here to see that the molar mass of CaSO4, let me find that, is 136.2 grams and 1 mole. So that's the number that goes right here, 136.2 grams and 1 mole. I have 1 mole of CaSO4 and 2 moles of NaCl. Those are my coefficients from my balanced equation. And then 1 mole of NaCl and 58.5 grams of NaCl. So again, I'm going to multiply across the top, multiply across the bottom, and then divide all of it. And 10.5 times 2 times 58.5 gives me 1228.5. I'm going to divide that by what I have on the bottom there. And that gives me 9.0 grams of NaCl. Okay. There's a whole bunch more here that you can practice. I'm just going to go ahead and put them up for you. I'm not going to go through all of the answers, but feel free to stop by if you have any questions. You're going to want to pause on each of these and go ahead and do the questions yourself. Make sure you understand how to do them. Again, go ahead and come after school, either Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. Or you can stop by during lunch on Thursday if you have any quick questions that you want to ask me. Otherwise, I will see you in D221 on Monday.